מה קורה נבות?
הכל טוב, מה איתך?
מעולה. We have an English episode today.
In English.
In English. אבל לפני שנגיד שלום למרואיין שלנו, נספר לכם על נותנת החסות החדשה שלנו, תוכנית הצמיחה לסטארט-אפים של אינטל, אינטל איגנייט. התוכנית העולמית של אינטל שמזמינה יזמים וסטארט-אפים שלבי סיד עד ראונד A להגיש מועמדות ולשפר את סיכויי ההצלחה שלהם. אז אם אתם יזמת או יזם עם סטארט-אפ טכנולוגי פורץ דרך מלהיב עם טכנולוגיה משבשת לאחר גיוס של $1,000,000, באינטל איגנייט מאוד ישמחו לדבר איתכם. איגנייט היא תוכנית הדגל של מנכ"ל אינטל שמייצרת הזדמנויות עסקיות לחברות בכל רחבי העולם. זו תוכנית בת 12 שבועות שבמהלך התקופה הזו עוברות החברות האצה משמעותית בתחומים כמו מוצר, טכנולוגיה, גישה לשוק, ובין השאר זו תוכנית שלא מבקשת מכם לא כסף ולא אחוזי בעלות בחברה, אז שווה מאוד ליצור קשר. בסוף הפרק גם נספר לכם איך יוצרים קשר. אז הנה מתחילים. Hello, Rob Locasio, the CEO of Lייבפרסון. How are you, Rob?
Good. How are you doing?
Very well. So we read the news and we understood that you're getting rid of all the office space you have right now, right?
Yeah, we have about, I think, 17 offices around the world, in North America, Europe, Asia, South America. So we've decided to, no longer have these central office spaces. And obviously our office in Renana was the first one to make the move. And so obviously there's been some press about that and stuff like that, but yeah, we're not going to go back.
So it's a drastic move. It's not like going remotely for the time of the corona.
Well, corona's basically, as I say, I often say, what is this virus asking us to change? I've been through a lot over 20 years in running the company. I've been through the .com implosion and, the financial crisis. And each one of these crises, they are asking us to do something. And when you look at this, specifically, there's no way for our employees to be physically next to each other in some office and have them sit next to each other. And so instead of waiting for something to happen, even if we get a vaccine by year end and that gets distributed to people by early next year, that's going to put us a year outside of offices because in March is when we started. So if you're outside your office already, we're already in our homes, we're doing other things, we're having meetings in different ways. That's happening. So we just said, let's release ourselves from our past. And the office space is the past. And let's take that money that we're paying landlords and not getting any value because we can't enter those spaces and guarantee the health and safety of our employees. And let's give that money back to our employees. And let's have them figure ways to work better. And so that's what we're doing.
Rob, what do you mean by giving back the money to the employee? All of the employees are getting a raise right now? What's going on?
It's not, yeah. So basically what we're going to do, we spend about $10 to $12 million a year, US dollars on office space globally. That comes out to about $6,000 US, $6,000 to $8,000 US per employee that we are spending to have people in offices. By the way, 50% of our employees already work from home. They're salespeople. They work with our customers. So out of our 1,200 or so employees, about 600 in office space and 600 already work from home. So if we look at those pool of employees, we said, let's take the money that we're spending and let's then give it to them. It's not per se a raise. They don't just take the money and spend it on something else. We're going to give them a budget. Everyone's going to get a budget. And they can take that budget and they can do things with it. And if it's, let's say, if it's $250, $500 a month, whatever it'll turn out to be, they'll take that and they'll invest it into maybe someone goes to a WeWork, or I'm going to pool my money with 600 other employees and we want to be together for the next 5 months working next to each other somewhere. Fine, do that. But we're gonna put that down into the employees and invest in them. And they've already started to think of great ideas. we already started to fund. We put about $500,000 at the beginning of COVID into home offices. We're going to do more investing there. So I'd rather put the money down with them than giving it to a landlord. Landlords right now, unfortunately, are not providing a product that we can use. They have not made the offices safe. They don't have the right equipment for the ventilation and airflow. They don't have the right situation for elevators. And so, forcing us to go into an area where one of our employees or, our employees could get sick is not going to happen. We unfortunately lost an employee who was 23 years old to COVID at the beginning of this thing. And, he was an engineer in Seattle and died. And that left a mark on us. Yeah, that was a 23-year-old kid who, had no pre-existing conditions and he died. And so it told us something about this is real. And we're not willing to put our employees in harm's way for what? So they could sit next to each other. We're doing quite well with people working this way. So we're committed to this path.
We didn't say anything like we introduced you as the CEO of lייבפרסון, but we didn't say anything about what lייבפרסון is actually doing. So what is lייבפרסון?
Yeah, so we're the largest provider of platforms that enable big companies around the world to communicate with their consumers over messaging and using AI and bots. So if you go to American Express's website, Citibank, T-Mobile, we have Orange, we have all these companies around the world that when you want to communicate with them, instead of picking up a phone and calling, you can message them. You can interact with a bot and automation. And so we provide the largest, we're the largest provider of this technology. And actually, we made our way to Israel in 2000 when I bought a company there called HumanClick, and they were a competitor when we were doing chat. I invented chat actually in 1997, so that's our roots. And we bought a company in Israel, and we moved all of our technology there in 2000. That's why we have between 200 and 300 people in our office in Israel.
And how big is the company?
The company is a little over 1,200 employees. We do about 350 million in revenues. We're growing around 20% a year. And we're a market cap of close to $3 billion in market cap today. And we're a public company. We're a public company. We're on NASDAQ. We've been on NASDAQ for 20 years.
And you were also on the Israeli Stock Exchange, right?
Yeah, we're on the Israeli Stock Exchange too. Yeah, we're on both exchanges.
Yeah, how is it to have two stock exchanges trade your stock?
Well, the Israeli Stock Exchange, because we're listed on NASDAQ, pretty much trades with it trades with the NASDAQ exchange when you look at stock going up and down. And then the Israeli Stock Exchange makes it very easy that you don't have to do any special filings or anything. What we file in the United States gets filed in Israel. So I think we've been public over there for 10 years in the exchange over there. So it's been fine.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get back to the office issues because, I work for Wix, which is also a company that works most of the time online or all of our business. Yeah. And we started getting people back to the office because we thought that this is the way you make things move faster. But then the second wave hit Israel, and then we said everyone go back to work from home, and this is right now the situation. But as a company, we believe that when you're planning an offense, you need to work together with your team. You can't do it remotely. Remotely, you're usually doing more defense. Do you agree with that statement?
I agree that people need to be together. I don't believe they need to be in a one office space. Like we had headquarters in the U.S. in New York. We had about 200-300 people there. So in Israel, we had 200-300 people in one office space. I just don't believe in it. I always believed in it, by the way. I always believed that I needed to have our employees in offices so they work well and they're engaged and they can engage in the culture. And we're a very culture-focused business, by the way. We're very focused on our culture and our principles, and we've done a lot of work around there. And so we understand that people do need to get together at times, But what I'm finding, and personally is, and I never worked from home in my entire life. I've always worked in an office. Even when I was a startup, I got an office. It was the first, I actually had an office before I had an apartment. When I started the company in 1995, I said, I need to have an office. I slept in my office. It was a small office. I slept in it because I felt I needed to have an office. It's been my mental state. But what I see now is something very different. I see that when I reflect on what's happened is I don't always like being in the office. And we 10 years ago, we kind of pioneered open office space. It didn't really exist as much, but we created that, and we created it even in Israel. We had this open office space. No one had offices and all of that. We obviously before that had traditional office space where executives had offices and other people had cubes. So I've been through kind of all of that. I don't always like to be in the office. Like there are times where it's too distracting. There are times where I need to be alone to do work alone. And so I don't think working from home and being remote and quote unquote distributed is the way to go. Those are very I'm alone, lonely perspectives. I think there are times where we need to be by ourselves and do work because that's the best way we can work. There are times we need to be with our teams. There are times where I'm okay being in my home, and there's times where I want to be outside my home. We want to give that flexibility to our employees. What I'm finding personally is that I'm working better than I ever have, because sometimes I work in my home office. On Fridays, I block out Fridays to do a walk with one of my employees or the people I work with, one of my leadership team. I'll take a walk for 2 hours, a nature walk, and we're talking about the business. I never did that before. And so I find that if we can really nail this, the flexibility of it could be quite powerful. We have people that have moved to Hawaii from the US. They're in New York. We had a woman who just moved to Hawaii back to her home. She could have never done that. I've got one of my lead engineering leaders. He was in Seattle. He's in Hawaii right now. He has a home there. He's working out of there. He's doing a great job. So this whole work-life balance, I never believed in it. And I still don't. If you want to go and build a great company, you got to work hard. I wake up early. I'm still 20 something years later, I work hard. With that said, it's great to work hard, but I'm also in an environment where I see my kids during lunch. I don't have to commute for 2 hours or an hour. I just walk 5 minutes. There's something very powerful about this.
So you talked about the flexibility for the employees. How about the flexibility for team leaders or for management to be able to regroup their team and meet them in person and sit in a room with a blackboard or whiteboard and draw things together?
We're doing it now. So there are people who are getting together in people's homes. There's people that have gotten together in like a cafe. They're figuring it out, and this is without budget. Once we give them budget, they're going to find cool spaces there. First of all, there's going to be a supply of spaces. That we're not the only company thinking like this, and big companies much larger than ours are also finding that they can't put everyone back. So they're going to do 20% of the company goes on Monday and the other 20% on Tuesday. It's like teams. It's not going to work. And so what's going to happen is there's going to be a lot of space that's going to be available that we can go ahead and just grab and use. And so there's things like WeWork, obviously, in spaces where you can rent them today and get memberships, but there's going to be other spaces. And what I'm finding is the employees are just coming up with cool ideas. They found some space in their neighborhood, and a bunch of them get together and they have a meeting and they bring a whiteboard, a small little thing, or they're writing on a piece of paper. I mean, they're doing it. Like I did a meeting and a bunch of people were in someone's home on their dining room table. Great.
But Rob, how do you keep the company culture that it's so important to you in all the tech companies? How do you keep it when the office is so spread out?
Because, I don't have, by the way, I don't want to seem definitive about any of this. So I sound definitive, but we're working through it. So we actually have about 100 volunteers. The way we're doing this right now is we have team leaders. Actually, our team, one of the team leaders is the gentleman Madeline, who runs the Israeli office, and then we have someone from our sales team. They're co-chairing a group of about 100 employees, and right now they're working through the mechanics and the specifics of how we're going to do all of this. And by the end of August, we'll be done, and we'll have a framework for this. So a framework for that is also culture. how do we make sure our culture is intact, and people are getting onboarded, and it's all working in a very strong way. We're working through that. You have to imagine we're a global company. Just to understand, we do have 17 offices around the world. Since 2000, we had technology in Israel, and yet headquarters was in New York. We've always been globalized. We've always been distributed. We've onboarded employees from their home offices. We've onboarded employees from remote locations. So this is nothing new for us. We never had one office with everyone in it. We just didn't have it. So we're used to this kind of working because of what happened with Israel and how we bought this company in Israel and moved R&D there. So the culture stuff we'll work through. I assume we're going to get together probably once a year. Everyone will get together. But I assume people are going to get together with their teams and work with them during the week. So we'll work it out, but we'll work it forward. Culture's just not about people being in an office. I can tell you that culture's not about people being in office. We have half our employees who never come to an office, and they still have to be culturally aligned to the business.
What kind of reactions do you get from the employees for that move?
They were relieved. And that's what you're seeing today. I saw an article on Google where the employees are demanding to know what's going on. It's not good enough to tell your employees, next month, maybe we'll go back to the office. September, we're going back to the office. October, we're going back to the office. That's just not realistic. We have employees that are just in limbo, and that's what they were sitting in limbo, figuring out that they're sitting in the really challenging ones are ones that are sitting in an apartment in a city, and they can't go out, and they're not going to the office, and they just want to know what to do. And so we freed them. As of last week or 2 weeks ago, we freed them because we made the announcement that, I did a call, a video with everyone, and said, you're free to go where you want to go. Now, working with your manager, you have to be connected. You got to be engaged in the business. This isn't about taking a vacation. You can take a vacation when you can, but we need everyone to work because there's a lot of demand in our business right now. And people were relieved. They were like, I have clarity. I'm going to move or I'm not going to move, but you gave me clarity. And what's happening is a lot of companies, they're not giving their employees clarity. They're just saying, wait till September, wait till next year. And people have lives. And some people have families, will make choices and say, look, I don't want to be in this situation. We need more room. Maybe I'm in a small apartment in the middle of Tel Aviv. Look, I'll move somewhere in the north. I'll go someplace else. I'll go to a Mushav. I'll go wherever to get more room. And I have that choice now. And we got to give those employees choice.
So how do you think, like 5 years from now, how do you think the worker environment will look like? It's going to be nothing like what we see, what we used to see before COVID-19, or what's going to happen?
I think, we will not go back. I go back to what is COVID. I have a sign on my wall that says, what is the virus asking us to change? And if we can look at this virus as a temporary thing that's going to go away and we can go back. Humans don't go back. We go forward. That's our nature. That's how we progress. Going back to an office, the only way we would go back if we thought that was the most ultimate way to do work. And I don't think anyone can say that they think being in an office is the ultimate way to do work. I can say that because I'm in an office. I've been my whole life. And the reaction of our employees tells us that too. So I think there's going to be, this is the start of a new model of work. Now, what I hope is that a lot of companies stay in the past. That's my goal. Like, I hope people just try to get their employees back in offices and because I'm going to compete. We want to get the best employees of the world working for us. In this new formation, we have more choice. We can get employees all around the world. We can create a different lifestyle for employees than they could get if they're forced to go to an office. That's going to make us more competitive.
Do you think, what else the virus taught you beside changing the work environment?
The virus in our core business has taught us that what we believed, which was that contact centers, these physical places that people sit 3 feet from each other and answer phone calls all day. And it's like a factory. It's a factory of customer support. We believe that those shouldn't have existed, that voice calls and being put on hold and that whole thing that's like 50 years old should be gone. I've said this for 3 years. And what we're seeing is now the demand in our business that tells us that that's true. That when the contact centers closed because they had to close too, and the people were sent home, they can't do voice calls at home and be that efficient. And you need to be digital in the digital world. So we increased our volume on our platform by 40% within weeks after COVID and that's tens of millions of conversations that are happening instead of through voice now on our messaging platform. It just told us what we believe, that in a digital world, people should be connecting digitally and it should be aligned to consumer behavior, which is messaging, because everyone messages their friends and family. And so we're a benefactor of COVID in the way that it definitely shifted how brands are going to communicate with their consumers. So that's been one thing we've learned.
What do you see from your corporate partners or clients? What kind of shift did they have to do?
We work with these very large brands, and the one thing I spoke to many of them over the last couple of weeks and months, and the one thing I heard was, don't let a good crisis go to waste. People are in these big companies, and a lot of times they can't make change because it's inertia, it's bureaucracy. And what I've seen with even the largest brands is them turning around and say, we can make change now. We can do things quickly. We can, think of this, a big bank, they may have 40,000 employees. They brought 40,000 employees home within days. And they never thought they could do that. Home working with 40,000 employees and made it work. I talked to the CIO of a big telco in the US, and they did that with almost 100,000 people, brought them home within a 2-week period and got them functioning from home offices. They never thought they could do that. So this stuff opens up a world of possibilities. Obviously, you can look at this one or two ways. You can look at this as a tragedy, which it is, and people are getting sick and dying. And this is very bad. This is human tragedy. The other side is there's something going on in the world that's making things progress. And especially for these large companies, they're progressing. E-commerce was, if you saw the stats, it's normally about 15% of commerce. It's now 25 to 27% of commerce within weeks. That shifted. So more stuff is being done online than because you can't walk into a store. So there's massive shifts and they're going towards digital. And that's going to really change the world. How we work out, how we teach our kids, that's all going to change. And it should have changed.
But I'm looking at your stock before the virus and after, and I don't see a lot of change. So how come this effect and change of business didn't affect the stock as much as I thought before I checked?
Well, stock's up a lot. Pre-COVID, it was, I think, around $20 a share. It's close to it's 40 something. So yeah, our stocks changed a fair amount pre-COVID. So we're not at our all-time high. We're getting close, but we're pretty close to our all-time high. So we're actually doing quite well on the stock side, and I think as we start to report our quarters coming up, more and more good things will happen because as we've said to our shareholders after last quarter, we see a lot of demand in our business. And then, that's got to show up in results, which we'll, start to put out there in the next couple of weeks. We'll have our Q2 call.
So we should expect a good result in the earning world.
Yeah, I mean, look, we as I said on the last quarterly call, when you're up, when you have that amount of demand on your services, that will eventually translate into revenue. So we're doing well. We're hiring people. We're growing. We see demand. We're seeing demand from our existing base. We're seeing demand from new logos. We weren't sure if we could sign new customers. We signed new customers. We've onboarded new employees. So we're running sort of business as usual, but with the demand at a different rate than it was pre-COVID.
So now that the world is flattened because you can hire people everywhere, Do you hire people in new places that you never thought before?
Yeah, it's I think there's just going to be an opportunity to hire people globally and in many different areas. So yeah, I think it's gonna change the whole way in which we do our work and hire people. I'm excited about it. I'm scared. Look, I'm not going to be. I'm been around long enough to know it won't be easy. We're going to have to be very thoughtful. We don't want to destroy our culture. Um, with the flip side of that is that I'm really sure we are going to make it work because we're a very entrepreneurial company. We always invent products. We don't copy products, and we have people who are really good at executing around innovation. So I think we're just going to apply our normal muscle, our skill, and we'll apply it to this problem, which is changing how people work.
So you've been traded in two stock exchanges. You have a very big R&D team here in Israel for many years. What is your view on Israel or the Israeli ecosystem working with us for so long?
Yeah, I've been there since 2000, so I've seen a lot of change. The best change I've seen in Israel is the food. By the way, when I first came there in 2000, I was eating a lot of I was eating kebabs and stuff. Like you guys pioneered farm to table early on, and some of my favorite restaurants are there. But put that aside, the Israeli spirit is really an entrepreneurial spirit. Obviously, it comes from the birth of the country and the struggles that the country has had to do. I think, first of all, Wix. I'm so impressed by what Wix has done. What Wix has done, which I think is very different, is Wix really has been a sustainably great company. And if you look at it in when Israeli tech companies become large, they tend to not grow very well, and I don't think they're high performing companies. And obviously you have Checkpoint, Nice, and some of the Amdocs, but when you look at these companies, I just don't think that they're not Google, they're not Facebook, they're not Apple. But Wix has done a really great job at being large and being very successful. And I think that's been the gap in the Israeli tech scene. It's been a startup nation, as the book said, and it's had that mentality. And the mentality, I've said this for years, even at conferences I've spoken over there with my friend Yossi Vardi, at his conference, and I've said it many times. Like, Israelis tend to sell their companies too early, and because they have a concept that because they need to go to market in the U.S. or something, they need to get acquired by a U.S. company. And that was kind of a mentality where I think Wix, they need more Wixes, where there'll be people who leave Wix who have a vision of building a large company. And so I think that's the part that Israel has to sort of nail down. I've always asked myself, why don't they have a Google? Why don't they have a Facebook or an Apple? Because they have the technology smarts and they have the training, but there's something gap in building a large company there. And they've got to get, Israelis have to kind of make that journey.
Beside building a big company, which is really important, do you have appetite to acquire more companies in Israel?
Yeah, I mean, we've acquired 4 or 5, I think, 4. Yeah, so we've acquired companies. We acquire them all around the world. I have a deep connection to Israel just because I've been there since 2000. I'm not Jewish or anything, which is funny. I have no connection on that level or have family there. And but yeah, I know my Jesuit upbringing, though. My Italian Catholic mother. I don't know. So, but Jews and Italians are pretty close in how we view the world. We're from the Mediterranean, and family and eating and speaking loud and hugging each other. I've always felt this connection. There's a connection between the culture my family came from too. But we'll look at doing other things there, and we obviously have a large team of people there, and I've always thought obviously Israel's a special place. I do think once again there's got to be a mentality shift over there if Israel wants to be a real powerhouse beyond the startup and beyond I call it the division. Like Google has a division there. We have a division there. But we've globalized technology now, so Israel's a piece of a larger puzzle for us. But I think there's got to be some places where Israel has like those Wixes. And once again, I think Wix has done an amazing job.
Thank you, Rob, very much. I'm sorry we're out of time, but it was really interesting for us, and I hope it was also interesting for you.
Yeah, it always is. And we're hiring, and we're looking for employees that want a different way to work, by the way. And we'd love to have people apply now and work a different way and help us with this. So if you're an engineer or in different groups out there, we're hiring people there, and would love to have more great people from that country involved with the company.
Okay, thank you, Rob. We're going to move to Hebrew a little bit.
Yeah, those...
סבבה, I'll say סבבה.
סבבה, אוקיי.
אז הפרק הזה, אביב, זמין בכלכליסט, בספוטיפיי, בכל מקום שאתה מאזין לפודקאסטים. אם אתה מאזין ואהבת, אני ממליץ להאזין ליובל מטלון, המנכ"ל של לייבפרסון ישראל.
שהתראיין אצלנו בדיוק כשהוא עשה את המעבר מאי-ביי ללייבפרסון. אז תאזינו לפרק הזה, ולפני סיום נספר לכם על נותנת החסות שלנו, אינטל-איגנייט, שמסיימת בימים אלה את המחזור השני המצוין שלה, ומתחילה גיוס חדש למחזור השלישי. אז אם אתם יזמים של סטארט-אפ בשלבי צמיחה, ומעוניינים לעבוד עם ענקית הטכנולוגיה אינטל, שרכשה הרבה חברות והרבה רכישות ענקיות, כמו מובילאי, הבאנה לאבס, מובית, ואם אתם רוצים לעבוד בליווי צמוד של צוות חזק, מיומן ומחובר לתעשייה, אתם יכולים לשלוח להם אימייל ל-ignite@intel.com. תסתכלו גם על רשימת הבוגרים שלהם, באמת כמה חברות מרשימות, ותשאלו אותם אם אתם מכירים אותם לגבי הערך שהם קיבלו בתוכנית. אנחנו ממליצים.
נכון, טוב, יאללה ביי. Thank you, Rob, ביי.